This is the Linksys from Me Too podcast series with Gregor Ross and Andy Wallace. So, welcome to the From Me Too podcast. I'm here with my co-founder, Gregor.
Good morning, Andy.
And Natasha Hope.
Hello, good morning, gents. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, good stuff. So, Natasha, just to tell you, the From Me Too podcast, we like to get to know our guests, understand their journey, where it's taken them, the good and the bad of that journey, and get to know the person and, really what's made you successful and brought you to where you are today. So, we're really looking forward to hearing more about you. But could you first of all tell us a bit more about Hastin, just a brief background of your company, and then we'll get into the podcast.
Sure, Hastin. We've been around over 2.5 years now. We're based in Edinburgh. We have an office in London as well. And we are an EDI consultancy. We work with quite a cross-sector of clients. So we've managed to not pigeonhole ourselves by luck. We've managed not to do that. And we work very closely with clients, a bespoke service to help them achieve goals and look at challenges they may be having within that equality, diversity, inclusion space. And that's what we focus on.
Fantastic
stuff. And what about what we try and do at the start as well? Natasha says we go all the way all the way back. So tell us about your upbringing, where you're from, and I know that you made a journey a while back, and it quite a long journey, didn't it?
I did. Well, a long time ago, I was arrived with a coat and a scarf and that other thing I had. So originally from Trinidad and Tobago, and grew up there, and most of my life left there when I was maybe 22. And yeah, I think I always hold Trinidad in I have a bubble in my head. I have a paradise bubble that I keep going back to when I grew up there. And it still is. It's a very diverse island. A lot of influence, not just from colonial times, but all the other people that came for trade and what have you. So it's quite a mixed population. Indian ethnicity, Chinese ethnicity, Portuguese, Syrian, European, I could go on and on, African. So quite a mix, which means there's a lot of good food to be had in that small island, and quite a mix in the people and the cultures. So very much used to just being around everyone and soaking things up and learning things and taking a bit of this and that. And then I moved to London when I was, I want to say maybe 22, 23. And that was just for a bit of adventure. And I always do joke that I must be having, time flies when you're having fun. I must be having a blast because it's gone like that. I don't know where it's gone, but it's gone. That's half my life. Moved to London just for a bit of adventure and just loved it. I think I always knew. I don't know why, because none of my family had moved abroad and lived away. So that was like a chat that we had.
Was that close family?
And when I moved to London.
No, your family. What sort of size? Were you all close?
No, we're
That
small.
didn't feel like a big move?
I don't know. We're a small family, like a small nucleus. Then there's lots of around, and then you live on a small island. So I think you're always kind of. But I guess within my household, a small family, a small unit, really, I suppose. And I think just the idea of go somewhere and do something different is very appealing to me. So I did that. Always, I think when you leave home, always intention to go back, and you can't, you don't. I don't know. So, and then I stayed in London. I was working, jobs in banking and nothing high up, just little temping as you do back then when you're young. And then I moved into recruitment for banking and technology, and worked in the city and had a great time and met lots of people and did well. And then I did that for about just after a decade rolled past, again, very quickly. And then I moved to Edinburgh about 16 years ago, maybe, thereabouts. And I don't know, if I had to fill that time, I'd struggle. It just feels like a blip. But yeah.
And what brought you to Edinburgh?
Oh, love. I met
Took it off. For the city.
Love. I love for the city. Love brought me, and I stayed,
A good Scotsman then.
Yeah, well, yes. I'm have to go back and tweak that bit.
Yeah.
Love brought me in, and when I've come to Edinburgh on holiday, we come for Easter, Christmas, all the rest, and I go, oh, I'd love to live here. I'd love to live here. So when the chance came, grabbed it. Definitely the people. I think the most that reminded me of home in the Caribbean. And I was very surprised. I don't know, I wasn't expecting it. Because, London, I love London. It's a great place. I've always loved it. but it's different. You can kind of navigate your day and your years quite, I don't know, in your bubble in a sense. Whereas when I came here, very easy to meet people and chat about anything and put the world to rights when you just stopped in to have a quick drink somewhere.
Mm.
And I think the people are what made me stay, definitely. Felt like a second home.
The weather's a good talking point.
Well, obviously, clearly, I was sick of all that sunshine and
You thought
that vitamin D I was getting overdosed, so I just go.
we've not had a bad year this
No,
year.
it's been a good summer.
So I'm going to bring out our first stat now. It's 59% of UK employees feel EDI still needs improvement. You mentioned your experience there in banking, recruitment technology and education. You worked for RBS and Edinburgh Academy. So how do you think that career has shaped your understanding of workplace culture and inclusion? And what's your
I
thoughts?
think that the appetite for it and the understanding of it has grown a lot. When I look back to myself way, way back when, too many moons ago, you just be grateful for the interview and, just get on with it. And I always joke if when a very young me, if my manager ever came up and said, "Are you happy? Is everything okay?" I'd have a heart attack and wonder, what did they hear? Why are they asking me? I think the appetite to understand what the culture is, where you're working and how you fit in there, and if it's something that aligns with you, is very much grown over the years, and not just with young people. I think across generations, there's just been a shift. That is something more than turning up
Yeah.
and type, pack away, and off you go. And perhaps that whole COVID and lockdown and where we shift everything kind of opened up a few more channels to want more when you go into work, and to not hide life behind a cupboard door. If it is you have elderly parents and this is something that's, you need to focus on and balance work, that's fine. If you have little ones, if you have, challenges of your own, if you have the things, you don't have to hide them and turn up, and put a show on. And then, so I think that the cultures changes an appetite that people to want to identify with their employer and their teams. And there's an appetite, I think, from on top as well, from leaders, to want to capture that and see how they can enhance it and how they can make everyone kind of winners in a sense. You come and you understand your place and what you're doing and how you're contributing, and how can I help you? What can I do to make it better for you? What can we do? How can we explore things? So I think the appetite is there, and that's shown in those stats very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just going to add a little add on to that is, the younger generation are perhaps not going to be as loyal to employers. Perhaps the stats would suggest they maybe move around a bit more. Whereas, I worked for a company for 19 years,
Yeah.
for instance.
Yeah.
And, having that type, EDI as part of your embedded in your culture, do you think that would help? Or do you think people want to stay in the same company? Or do you think it's good for them to have other experiences? Or how do you think that would help
I think
loyalty or...
from a personal stance,
Yeah.
I think it's very good to have different experiences.
Yeah.
And I just speak for me because I think I benefited from working in different organizations and moving the way I did. And it wasn't intentional either. It's just
Yeah.
opportunities sometimes come your way. And it's good to see how something's done somewhere else, and kind of helps you figure out how you want to present yourself as well. You see good practice, you see bad practice. So I think as a young person, it's good. I think, you'll always have that portion of people that will keep moving for various reasons. And I think things like life, the stage of life that you're in, that tends to kind of dictate when you slow your roll a little bit. But at EDI, that bit, it should cater to everyone in essence, if done well. And obviously not everyone is in 100% because you can't achieve that, but it should cater for those different stages in terms of the young, very unexperienced, an experienced person coming on board. It should be something that helps them move along and should be very aware of what their experience is like and what they need, being someone that's, still trying to get their feet under them. Those that are a bit more further down the line, it should encourage their progression, what they see as progression. I might just want to be a subject matter expert. You might want to be lead a team of 10, so understanding people and what that progression could look like. And then you have, as you again go on, how do you keep someone happy? Can you keep them happy?
Yeah.
Is what they're looking for, what you can provide, that transparency bit. And all of those things fall into that EDI space. They
Yeah,
do.
I even think of your own, journey coming over to London.
Yeah.
I've worked in London for 10 years myself, and I'm always encouraging my children, get out, see the world, because that's what will also shape how you perceive things and how you want, what your values are. And, I think, it's great to hear of your journey, but, thinking, I think you've definitely worked abroad as well, or haven't you as well, Gregor, and dealt with companies abroad.
Yeah, maybe based UK, but always working globally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. So think about that journey and you now being in the leadership role. Can you talk about maybe some of the experiences you've went through at the different companies, the banking, the private sector, and how that's maybe shaped how you try and lead now?
Yeah.
And it's also maybe how it's shaped how you feel about ED&I.
Okay. I've been very fortunate. I don't know how. I have been. I had a very good experience when I landed in London. Very green, very wet behind the ears. If there was CCTV, I'd love to see me stumbling around Canary Wharf, looking, for my interview and all the rest of it. I don't know what that was like. But I was very fortunate. I was either incredibly, I don't know, my head's thick. So even if there's the problem in front of me, I'm not seeing it. I'm focused on what I'm doing, or I don't know, the good Lord sends many, many angels to keep me right. But I've had good experiences, worked under very, very good managers. And I don't know if that's luck, but I was able to take away a lot of examples of good practice with me. And I suppose one thing that always stood out, so the journey was fine. I have no horror stories under my belt. I'd be making it up all line if I said I did. But the one thing I would notice, coming from a very cosmopolitan island, being very naive, not having traveled really before, so I just have this thing in my head, and then coming to work in but then very fancy places. I'm in Canary Wharf in the Tower, 27th floor, State Street Bank, all these things very removed from what I've had back on my island. But I'd see no one that looks like me, and I'm thinking, how do I talk myself into this? How come there's no one that's actually here, born and bred here? How do I arrive and 2 weeks later I'm working in State Street Bank? It makes no sense, and I would look around and I think, well, it's still me. I don't understand, but okay. And I think as I matured and understood my surroundings a bit more, and as you mature, you take on different issues around you, and you think of others and not just yourself. You become more curious. And I think, well, not just me, but I don't see a lot of different representation. But then you think to yourself, well, I have to think of the population where I am and all the rest. That London's quite a diverse
I would say.
city. So you would expect, but that would carry on. I remember when I moved into recruitment, and I always remember it. We'd have lots of social stuff after work, and the only time I would see anyone that looked like me was when the cleaners came, and that's because we've stayed back late drinking, and they've turned up. And just that realization, okay, well, maybe there could be other people in the room, and that curiosity as to why not. And I think that kind of stayed with me throughout. Balancing it with, okay, the population is different, the demographics are different, obviously. But is there room, and not just race, across the board, is there room for other folk to be, around, and why are they not? So I think that probably was also always kind of pushing me towards that EDI space to understand it better and to see if we could jump in and dabble a little bit.
I suppose that brings us quite nicely to my next question. So you founded the business with Chirag
Chirag, yes.
back in 2023, and you had a shared sort of vision, if you like, to challenge diversity washing.
Yeah.
So term. So what inspired you both to take the leap into the business and to actually take on the challenge? What's been your biggest challenge to date to get things?
Okay, well, Chirag and I have known each other for a long time. You two, if I remember correctly, been friends for over 30 years, am I saying?
37 years in a week.
He kind of sighed before he said that. Right, so Chirag and I have been friends for a long time. Our paths crossed way back young, working in the city. We had similar friend groups, so we've always, known each other. And he runs a very successful SAP project and training consultancy in London. So he's one of that. Is it 6% of SME leaders who are from a global majority and demographic? And um, we've always kind of crossed paths, and we had an opportunity to work together. And we did that and quite well for a few years. And just talking, just shooting the breeze as you do, when you've crossed up the to-do list and you sit back and you're talking and just sharing thoughts and ideas around it. And we got to a point one day when he just said, I think we were on a Teams call, were we? Yeah, and he says, because he's based in London, everyone always sees me, but it's Chirag and I. It's just that I'm here and, in all the rooms I am, but we do everything together. We make those decisions together. And he said, why did we do it? Why did we do? And it just started from that. But I think having that friendship beforehand, working together beforehand. So again, I'd probably say the word values too much, but just understanding someone and realizing what you can do together with them. And yeah, we thought, okay, let's dip our toe in and see what we can do. And his business acumen, his knowledge of global business culture, I would say over 90% of the clients in his SAP company are abroad, so he's been navigating that space where you're balancing different expectations, nuances, all of those things. He also comes from a global majority background, Indian ethnic background. So we put our heads together and thought we'd forge and do something and create something. And so far, knock on every piece of wood, we've been doing what we set out to do.
And what's your biggest challenge been, do you think?
Biggest challenge, I don't know. Once I have this thing with my brain, which is probably why I have no horror stories. Once we get past something, even before we get there, I'm on to the next thing and on to the next thing. So this is probably not it feels like a cheat answer, but I think there'll always be challenges, and I feel like Chirag and I will always overcome them. We'll find a fix that suits. I think on a level behind closed doors, the challenge is not to get complacent and not to feel that we know everything. Because then you're not going to lead your clients where they need to go. So that's something. It's good to pat ourselves on the back, and we don't beat our own drum, but now and then we give a little pat. Oh, well, that
Got to.
you have to, but to not get too cocky and not complacent. Always chasing to see what next, how else, what can be tweaked, what is out there, what's coming down the road. I think that's a challenge in a sense, and also, like I said, the work we do is not based solely around race. Luckily, our clients and the things we've worked on is a wide remit, but some of it is about race, and sometimes when it's quite personal, you have to steel yourself a bit for some conversations, but that's part and parcel, I think.
I think you're quite similar in terms of personalities, both of you.
I don't know. Sometimes I think we are. He's very organized. He's very methodical. I am perhaps not as organized and methodical. I blame that on my Caribbean roots. We can only go so far. Being on time and then having things, as they should be. He's very methodical. He thinks things out so well. He's very considerate. And he does everything with integrity. Everything.
Yeah.
No big ego, but always thinks the next step. How does it affect people? How is it going to impact them? Consistently. So
And
that's me and
important
mine.
to you as well.
It's something I admire in him. I don't know if I get it as tight as he does, but it's something I always look at, admire, and I respect him. And I think, we do have similar values, very much so, and similar goals. I think we treat people in the same way. And so, yeah, it's good to see that kind of mirrored and what have you.
And based then in Chirag and the global experience, that's something we wanted to ask. There is a bit of a trend at the moment, particularly in the US, with the new president, that quite a lot's coming away from ESG, EDI, and how some people see the importance of that. And others are just as committed as they were. So are you seeing that at all? Are you seeing that affect the business, conversations you have?
I think it comes up in terms of people asking. They're curious to see, because obviously it'd be naive to see what happens there. Stone skips across the pond and lands sometimes quite squarely. I'll be honest, I have not seen a harsh pullback from initiatives that we've been driving forward with our clients. Yes, there'll always be pockets. There'll be always pockets of industries where they might pull back a bit. It might be terminology that's changed. It might be resources pull, and they were always going to go that way, perhaps. And some of them are dictated by their American parent companies. This is the mandate that's passed down. But I'll be honest, I see the same appetite to move forward as things have been here. I see a lot of organizations, big and small, leaning further in to all the principles that EDI can bring to their organization and their people. And perhaps I think a bit of that, the reason for that could be just the times we're in, that like cost of living crisis, social tensions, everything sometimes feels a bit fraught. And I think employees want to see something that they can believe in, some, like a sense of fairness or a sense of we're moving the right direction. So I think,
I
there's
think
good
it
appetite.
matters, and that we go out, and over the last 9, 10 months, a lot of the companies we are working with are of different sizes. And what they are combating as well is you have all these different generations working together.
Yeah.
But what is quite common is how people feel about the roles now and what they want out of a role and how a company is going to be. So it still feels to us that it's got its place. I was just aware of some of those global trends as well.
It does. I think the horse has bolted. And I think even anyone walking around thinking this EDI, la 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 la, we hear it all the time, doesn't really land with me. It does. It could be, I don't know, not to be simplistic, but it could be the ramp at the GP's office. It could be that my mom or your mom needs it because they're in a wheelchair. It could be, I mean, I'm heel and hearty. You two up here heel and hearty. It could be I tripped down the stairs and I hurt my ankle and I need a little bit of help getting up the building. It's all these things. They're not just, in the air. These are really thought out ideas and things put into place. And I think the more we see, the more we think, oh, I can use that. Oh, this has been beneficial. This has helped. The horse is bolted.
Yeah.
I don't think, I think we have too much of an appetite to achieve a bit more in our work life and to find a bit more happiness, things that relate us to turn back. So I think the UK is still in that space. And Scotland, very much dances to its own drum. And Edinburgh, if I zone in Edinburgh and Glasgow, if I zone in a bit more, the things you see happening in STEM and tech and in culture with the museums, technology firms, there's lots of stuff happening that's really bold and marching forward.
Yeah. We've taken in, Hastin takes an evidence-based approach to inclusion. So I'm just intrigued how you use data from your time in HR and how you've seen it evolve. And you mentioned Chirag there, his business. Maybe that's where the data. So I'm interested to learn more about how you're using that.
Lovely. Well, I think that whole data piece has changed in terms of everything's there for us to get the numbers. We can get the numbers of the folk in this building right now. Age, demographics, their race, ethnicity, religion. We can catch all of that right now. I think what's changed is how we use it. And our data is gold. And I don't have to tell you guys this. It's a gold mine, and people sit on it. It's like in the basement in a cellar. You shut the door and you open the door, somebody you grab something, but it is gold. And how you treat it and what you do with it is another level of gold all by itself. So what we've seen is, as opposed to just wanting to have the numbers, which sometimes I think if you're not doing that EDI piece correctly and you're doing it in a performative way, a tick box way, those numbers is quite comforting. So we can show that we're capturing. If you are doing it with more consideration and more thought, what do we do with the numbers? So it's the nuance and the storytelling between it. I think the numbers, the data will kind of help you direct your inclusion focus, but it's the people and the stories in there and that will help bring it to life. So I think what we're seeing and how we use it as well, in terms of evidence-based, is okay, you can have, and this is just a simple example. Let's say in this building, if we're a company, let's say we want to know how many Hindus we have. Fine, so we can know we have 5 Hindus. And then what? What are we doing with that data? Maybe we want to find out how we can make their experience with our company better. Anything that they want to tell us. Sometimes we keep asking people who just say, just tell me. So it could be something around a certain month or the way their annual leave works or what they want to do when it comes to religious observance. It could be they want to understand better how soon before, how can they put things in place. If I know, if, let's say I'm Hindu and there's a religious observance coming up, we celebrate as a big family. I want to take Thursday, Friday off because this is a big weekend for us. It's just those simple things. How do I navigate that? How do I set things up so whoever's taking over for me, how do I do it without feeling bad? But I feel like how do you create an environment where I can just come and say, guys, I need to come, things like that. So data grade, 5 Hindus. What's that do for us? Nothing. What's it do for them? Absolutely nothing. Okay, it's 5 of us, great. But how can we enhance the experience, understand them a bit better? What can we do differently? What do you want to get involved in? Do we have culture days coming up. We do this, that, the other. Do you want to have any input? Do you have anything that you can add to it that we would do differently? So it's looking for the stories within the numbers, because numbers will take you so far. And anyone who's just kind of, I think, satisfied with the numbers is kind of robbing themselves a little bit. It's not too scary when you go for it, further than that.
Yeah, it's like I can remember some examples a few years back when ESG started becoming embedded more, and you go in and companies were doing it really well, and then I would speak to either other directors or you'd be in a business and you'd see that it was almost it'd been done in the wrong way where it almost had a place. So it would be 10, 15 minutes at the boardroom, and then the ESG director felt under pressure because they feel this is all I'm talking about. And then the company felt like they're ticking a box, but if it's not really doing anything across the company, that's not the right way to do it. So it's the balance, isn't it?
It is. Do you guys see more of the balance or more of what you've just described in your careers?
I would say I see more balance now, which is it's in a better place. And I think you mentioned COVID a few years back. I think quite a lot that happened with COVID has been hard for companies because if you're a manufacturing company and you need people in all the time, how do you do that? It's maybe different from a company that can have a hybrid model.
Yes.
And then they've maybe thought about the workplace and they've thought about the workforce, what's the spread in terms of diversity, age, what they need people to be doing, and then they make the place of work a destination in a way, which is some of what you've been speaking about along with other bits of work. It's a really really interesting time, I think, we're in.
I think it is an interesting time. That's why I like to lean into all the very progressive things that are happening, because I think if you don't maybe work in this space, you can think, oh, that's off the table. That horse is dying. And it's not. There's a lot going around in terms of data, how it's used, how it's processed, just the respect of it. When you're asking people, tell me, and you have these categories, tell me where you fit in. And this is, I'm going to butcher his surname. His name is Kevin. I want to say Guyan, and I'm going to apologize for that. And he's part of a Square Lab at Edinburgh University. And Kevin brought out a book, but I've heard him speak. And it's very interesting, that data piece around the LGBTQ community, where you have to put yourself into this slot in order for policies to be informed and things to, you have to quite reveal so much of yourself. You have to be so, and why? Obviously I think people think, well, why should I? And it's because they don't see anything happening with that data. Again, if you do it the tick box way, and nothing's come of it, nothing that they can see. And then you start to think, well, why am I telling you so much about me? Because it is personal.
Yeah.
Why am I sharing all this when nothing is coming of it? So you have to treat it with integrity. You have to have a plan, a strategy. It's not just this ethnic minority reporting form. Move past that whole thing. There has to be, yes, you need to monitor. You need to see where progress is being made and where there are gaps. But get a bit more, a bit more flamboyant with it, a bit more creative with it. What else can I do?
I was just going to ask, is there any, maybe this is too rigid, is there a framework that you use or tools that you use to sort of help you with your business, especially when you're gathering the data and presenting it?
When we're going, there are tools that we use. This is why I lead heavily on Chirag, as you could imagine. I think you definitely play to your strengths. There are tools that help with workflow, that help with cutting out the bias bit, with helping you coordinate the data in such a way that you can quite quickly zone in on what you want to, where you want to come in with that strategy piece, if you will. It helps pull it together, especially for someone like me, where the numbers and all the rest, they seem to dance around. And that's a good thing with AI. I know AI gets a bit of a rap. I'm a dinosaur. I can't get that laptop or my phone to work. I have a new phone that's been sat in a box for 2 years. Why? Because I have this paranoid fear if I lose things when I, transfer over. So I'm the epitome of dinosaur. But AI is so, so transformative. And I know we hear all these scary stories, and I'm sure there's a bit of that. But in terms of what it can do for businesses, and it doesn't matter your size, you don't have to have, all this money and be a large organizations, SMEs, the stuff they can do to help put them on the right track and to simplify certain things, but a good result, not like a shortcut.
Yeah.
Again, around that data piece and workflow tools and identifying bias and helping with strategy to kind of fine tune it. I think there's a lot out there that's
Yeah, we
it's been
feel the same about it. There's so many opportunities with it, and I'd say if anyone's going to stay there ignoring AI because they're worried about it not move, they're going to be left behind.
There will be. It's not as scary, I think.
No,
That's me.
there's a lot of tools or out there, AI tools, and it's selecting the right one for your business. So that's a chat for another day. We had our conversation yesterday about that.
So just on that then, one of the things we're going to ask, I think in the website you mentioned about confronting the elephant in the room, which will probably be a bit of what we've been speaking about. This is a problem, so how do you want to go about it? So as you're going through the process and talking to a client in a business, how do you build that trust with the process so it isn't a tick box exercise, it's really meaningful?
Well, I think it's on our website. It's something we used to see at the start. There's a lot of focus put on making sure employees and everyone down the line has that room to speak and feel safe. I know that's a word that gets used a lot, but it's the best one I could come up with right now. It feels like they could come to the table and tell you, this is the issue I'm having, this is what have you. But at the top level, it's a slightly slippery slope because everyone's eyes on you. You say the wrong thing or you say it the wrong way. And it must be that thing in the chest, how do you walk back from it? And I think that's safe. That's where we go in to just have honest conversations, a lot of candor, a lot of confidentiality, to be honest with you. What is it do you think this thing's about? How do you feel? Because your background is also important to how you view things in the lens that you're viewing it from. Does any of this stuff make sense? So you're thinking you got to do it because everyone's doing it. So just really collaborative, honest. That's one thing. I have no airs or graces. So I find it very easy to sit down with people and just have those conversations. Always very happy to refer back to myself and my own personal experiences. I mean, sometimes I remember having conversations about privilege. Sometimes when you meet with business leaders and they, I'm a good. Privilege is something for people who are quite, I don't know, snobby, they think, or quite whatever. I'm just a regular. And yes, that's true. Privilege. Everyone has privilege. And I sometimes start off with speaking about myself. When I first moved to London, it really was easy and smooth for me, not because I was any rock star. It was just because of the school I'd gone to back in Trinidad and the friends I had, the connections, their parents, even the idea to go to London. That came from, people I was working with in a bank. So let's say I hadn't gone to that school and I wasn't working in that bank and somewhere else, maybe the idea would never come to me. And then when I moved to London, as opposed to, geez, how do I find work? Where do I stay? Where do I live? Didn't really have to, I had people there that I used to work with in a bank back in Trinidad. Right, I forget the paper now, but I used to look at the back of it to get all the job ads. And this is how you do it. And you register with these agencies, and these are the agencies. And you get your CV across to them. And I had a friend who was heading back to Trinidad for Christmas. Stay in my studio flat for a month while you sort yourself out. Great, 2 weeks later, I'm in a job. But I felt like I was the slickest thing to land in London. And my mother back in Trinidad would give my number to people. It'd be the hairdresser's cousin's gardener. I don't know. And I get these calls and she'd say, so-and-so's going to call you. Who's so-and-so? But my mom was thinking, as people, oh, how's Natasha in London? She's good. Oh, my niece is thinking of going. I think she could have a chat. So my mother basically would just give my number out. I was so arrogant because in my head, I had done all this. I don't know, I was really cocky about it. I didn't consider all the things along the way that made it so easy
Yes.
for me to do that. And I am ashamed. I mean, I say it as a funny joke. I am ashamed now because I don't think I was the warmest and the most helpful in those calls. Well, not just because of the volume of calls that were coming through, but when you're young, I don't know, you think you're this thing, but it didn't really hit me until later on. No, it is the people I knew. And it was the way they guided me straight to what I had to do. It was the fact that I was living in a nice studio flat for a month while I traipsed around London with my A to Z,
Yep.
and people's mobile numbers written down. That's how, so that was the privilege that I enjoyed. And I think I could have been more gracious with the whole island that called me at some point. I could have been more gracious and recognized that. So that's an example I sometimes lead, with leaders. It's not that you're a bad person or you've come from money. I didn't come from money or anything. It's just that awareness of the things that kind of make it a little bit easier.
Sorry, Andy. Awareness is a good thing, isn't it? Because if you care, or if you're trying to run a good company, you're trying to make it better, then you have to be open, you have to be aware, and you're learning, and you make mistakes, and you learn from them. So I think it's a great point.
Yeah, so I think that's a good segue actually to ask how you use your platforms like social media to help. You're offering practical, actionable advice like auditing recruitment materials on your sort of on your social media channels. How do you use that platform to help others and maybe to instigate a conversation, I suppose?
We use it by coming in at quite a practical level, kind of cutting out jargon, keeping it simple, straightforward. I suppose that's how we do a lot of things. In the social media space, I think I said earlier, we don't really beat our own drum very much. And perhaps that's one area I think where we can diversify ourselves and use various channels. I think in keeping with that very bespoke, very direct route that we've had so far, we keep it quite simple. But that's something as we grow and I guess you don't do everything at once, do you? And we're very measured. And that's down to Chirag. I'm probably not as measured, but it's a good way to be. It's a good to stop and take count and really have a bit of evidence and ideas and reasons why before you do something. And I think around that social media space, as we expand, it will be very considered. But for now, the way I use it is to be direct, keep it brief, speak something that could hopefully be helpful to the person who stops scrolling for a second to read, and could be something that plants a seed that whether they come back to us or they think about something else and do their own research, and it just kind of lands and keeps growing from there. But we try to keep it practical, nothing too fancy in terms of the lingo. Just keep it on the level where it can spark something.
And have you found positive engagement?
Yeah, I have done. And I've said before, I'm a dinosaur, but we found very much positive engagement. I think people are reacting to it well because they do want something that's practical, workable, sensible, seems to fit in maybe with thoughts they've been having themselves, or how can we, and that EDI piece can land in so many different places in organization. It could be the whole life cycle, but the recruitment bit, it could be in design, it could be in innovation, it could be in your supplier diversity, your chain. There's so many different avenues that you can come in at and see how you want to approach things. So it's not solely the race, religion, gender bit in terms of recruitment, which sometimes I think is where the focus can fall. And maybe that's the case when EDI is left solely to HR as opposed to being implemented across the board and being the thing that's in boardrooms, in the strategy meetings, in the design meetings, in the innovation meetings. I think if it's sometimes, and this is no slight on HR whatsoever, but sometimes when it's just left there, it can feel like it's just a recruitment piece and the life cycle piece, which is incredibly important. But there are so many other ways, the marketing lens that you use, the communication tone that you use. Amazing for innovation. and how much further it can take your idea to places that, I always think these people are so gifted to come up with ideas and inventions, and they're baby in essence. And with inclusion, just how far that can go. It's I think it's dynamic. I could bore you with stories, but
No, I mean we think very globally,
yeah.
and whether that's material supply
Yeah.
coming from an ethical supply chain, for instance, certainly the businesses I've been in, we have standards, ISO standards that push you down that route, but you definitely need to be behind that, and so there's all or where you're taking businesses into,
Yeah.
all that sort of stuff. So I think it definitely plays into it's far wider reaching than
Oh, it's
people
massive.
think.
Massive. The design, the accessibility piece. It's in everything. It's in
Yeah.
everything. It really is.
Yeah, and it's a good point on the recruitment because it can get quite siloed there.
It
Can't-
can get quite siloed, and then, you know what, guys? Let's focus on this one thing. Let's focus on just the accessibility, or let's focus on just the race piece. I think sometimes, and I don't think it comes from a bad place, but sometimes let's get a result quick. Got something that people can, and
So maybe it's the obvious place.
yeah, and then everything else falls through the gaps. And there's that intersectionality piece. If it's approached that way, as opposed to siloed. And I think that's something that harps back to my background growing up in Trinidad. It wasn't as siloed as I find things here, in essence. And that's just a fact, and just how things are. So I suppose I've never grown up with that. That in my mind, you just weave through rooms, and you weave through different things, as opposed to thinking you stay in this bit. But yeah, I agree with what you said.
So here's one for you. Network. That's hugely important to us at Linksys. So you
Right.
go to some great events, doing so much for their clients, strategic partners, companies we've not worked yet with. We enjoy it all. But how do you leverage the networking side of things, and does that help you amplify your message as well?
Very much so. I think when we first started off, I always liked meeting people and being around people, connecting. But then, you know what, as you know, when you have your own business, it takes on a different something. It's different. So you have this thing that you're good at and you enjoy, but then I don't know, you take on a different pressure, different responsibility. So the way I found it is I go places and seek out networks that I've never been before, and rooms I've not been in, and navigate through there. And I think you bring value to it. I like to connect people. I think if you meet someone and you're thinking of someone, you're thinking those two should speak, then what are you doing? You have to make sure you get a scenario where these two speak, where you're kind of almost cutting potential of what could be. So I think what I try to do is just bring some value add. And I think Chirag is very much like this as well in his approach in terms of connecting people, seeing where there can be collaboration and co-creation, and moving those things closer together. And what I've found so far is, for me personally, is I've built up such an interesting network of people, and I'm so I'm so glad that Chirag and I did this, created Hastin. In addition to all the good I feel we're doing, helping our clients and creating better culture, it's been so dynamic meeting different people and being in rooms with them to discuss things, some connected to what we do, some not at all connected to what we do, but it's such a good learning experience, and then putting them together and seeing something happen.
Yeah.
And I think that's something. And putting leaders together and seeing what happens there, especially around what we've been discussing today, because it could be that you've had a bit in some training or some what have you, and you've had a bit and you've had a bit, and your companies have different strategies and all the rest. But sometimes you bring people together, it's something else kind of happens there when you let them be, let them let them be.
Well, it's certainly the foundation of our business as well. This is how we met you, isn't
Yeah.
it? Through one of these
It is, it
events,
is,
and
it
we've now
is.
met on several occasions.
Yeah.
And I think that's it's absolutely right. It's the power of connection, and it may not be relevant to exactly to what you're doing, but there's always something that can come. It's fantastic. So coming on to look at the vision and the mission of Hastin.
Yeah.
I love this sentence here. your mission is to create inclusive culture where everyone can enter the door as themselves. I really love that. What's your long-term vision for the company, and what's the guiding principles that I suppose shape your leadership?
I think those guiding principles very much that integrity piece and accountability. Listening, like actually stopping, a bit of pause and a bit of grace both ways to kind of smooth that road. I think in terms of what we've accomplished so far, we're very happy with. What's ahead of us, we want to keep building what we're doing, continue adding value, bringing value to our clients, opening new doors, finding new ways, something that's maybe not been done before. And that's the thing with, because we work across so many different sectors, we get ideas that are practical. We don't jump in with a solution for you. We sit and we collaborate. And we want to keep working in that way, tightening that collaboration, seeing what innovation we've picked up from different sectors that we can bring around. But I think I've always thought that if an organization, be it a large organization, a government body, SME, what have you, if they're doing this EDI bit right, and I know there's a lot of wobbly bits in between there, I always feel like if you're walking down a hallway and it should be that doors are opening up that you're not even knocking on. It should be, if you're doing it right, that you're attracting, you're pulling the things that are align with your strategy and your vision. And that's, I think, how Chirag and I see Hastin as well. We keep doing it right and we're doing it opportunities. And I think that's the best thing. You don't know what's down the road sometimes. Like, we know we have a vision, but what else is there that we've not sat and had the same conversation we had a few years ago? Why do we do this? So I think that's the thing, leaving yourself open for that.
Yeah, leave yourself open, and I guess out of that, you've definitely, because it's come across strongly, your values. You've got practices in terms of how you and Chirag manage the business. So just thinking forward about, if you were to say bring in something like AI more into the business, how do you make sure you keep your values? Is that the back and forth between yourself and Chirag? Was that just constantly making sure you don't take the next change?
I think they're very firmly embedded in us, to be honest with you. I'm too long in the tooth to change now, to revert back to anything else. And I think we're a good sounding board for each other. And you can get complacent, but then, and I imagine you two see this, even though Chirag and I have very similar values and vision and all the rest, there are times when we'll clash. I'll think to myself, but this is definitely the way that we should go about this. And he's very strong about the way he thinks it should be done. And I think that's where the respect for each other comes in, because I listen and I don't, for example, get my back up or think, he's not, because I have so much respect for him that I'm going to listen. All right, let's see. That must be some of the two of you as well. I think
it's back to being free to speak and having respect. And I think if you have those two things, it's not that you won't disagree. It's not that you can't argue. It's just that you will get something positive out of that.
And then I think, and fundamentally, there's a common ground.
Yes.
And that's why we started the business. And I'm still.
But I think we'll always have that. I feel like we always will.
Yeah.
I think it just gets stronger, obviously, because, and you two will probably be able to tell me this more, when you do have those big challenges and your back's a little bit against the wall, imagine once it's resolved, that's an even tighter for you guys. We've done this, on to the next.
Yeah.
Yeah, and celebrating the wins as well. I think you alluded to moving to the next thing. I do that all the time. I'm not good.
I'm not good at celebrating, stopping and celebrating. Something I said to my son recently, he said, "Why don't you look happy?" This is my face. I said, "I'm happy." And I don't know, maybe it's a child. I don't know what it is. I'm aware of it. I find it hard to shake off. I'm on to the next thing. I'm grateful. I'm always very grateful for opportunities, and I wake up and the first thing I do is thank the Lord for all the opportunities that come my way. So I always leave from that stance, but then I move on to the next thing.
Yeah. I think we're similar.
Do you do that as well?
Sometimes it's because you can't pause because you're busy in everything else, and it's just how you challenge yourself to make sure that that's a stepping stone to the next thing and you're happy. I don't think it's not being happy. it's some people will stop. And I think if you've just got that mindset to what's next, you'll always be constantly moving.
So which of the two of you is the one that'll more pop the champagne and the one that's
I-
already on to the next
I
call?
think it's probably a point where we're quite similar.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know. We're trying to, we tell each other what we need to do, and
Yeah.
we need to do it, don't we? But we're certainly driven. There's a lot of similarities there. And, once something's achieved, you're on to the next goal. But I think, we're trying to do it there.
We'll take a note that we all need to get better.
I think we need to go for a drink after this or
Maybe
something.
I am aware of it, and I think of it quite a lot actually, because I don't want to get to a point where I look back and think, should have celebrated a bit more, should have stopped and taken on board a bit more. I think it's important to do. I just don't know how to do.
I think when your company's young as well, you're keeping on striving. But I'm sure these moments will come. We'll be sure we do. Yeah, do that, Greg.
I'm
Note
going to write
to
the notes about
selves.
that.
Yeah. So just in terms of leading as well, we've heard the positives of social media where you're engaging and you're giving good advice. But there's a negative side to social media where Gregor alluded to earlier with, like, in the US, if you think of Trump and all the negatives, it sort of amplifies sort of all the negative stories and how that might polarize certain communities or, the thoughts. I've got some other stats here, which are great, which are 76% of job seekers and 57% of employers consider EDI an important factor in decision making. So that's great stats.
Yeah.
And but how can Scotland and the UK lead and not sort of look at across the pond and just say, look, and Europe, how can we actually sort of lead the way? And with Hastin, what's your role in that?
I think that we are. I just don't think that it's not coming out the news. We don't.
Yeah.
I think human nature. We kind of zone in on, I'm scrolling or whatever. But I think that we are. To be honest, I think it's a very different culture. I know that there's obviously loads of social and political tension, and everything feels like it's been ripped off at the edges. And no, we're not aligned. And no, we don't get along. And no, we're not moving in a direction that's positive. And no, we don't have values that we share. I think it's quite the opposite. I think it's quite the opposite. I think definitely Scotland and the UK, but I live here and I feel obviously I'd always kind of leave with Scotland. Definitely Scotland and the UK as a whole is very focused on driving forward innovation piece. There's a pride in accomplishments that have gone and what's to come. I feel like it's, I don't know if it sounds sappy or not, but as a nation, it's always pulling together. It's always pulling together and pulling each other on. And I think that will definitely contrast to what we're seeing, across in America. I feel like sometimes it's being not rammed down our throats because you have to be aware of what's going on in the world, but there's a lot else that's going on. And I think the way to lead that forward is to that awareness piece, to look for stories right here, to look for things that are happening here, very dynamic things that need our attention.
Yeah.
That need our input, that need us to help by moving those collections along and putting resources and helping where we can. We need to be looking at that. And I think we are, to be honest with you. I think we are. I think there's a lot of positive, very good stories. I think it's what the Scots do. I know there's the complaining bit and this bit, but I think that's what we do. There's a lot of pride. And so I think we are. It's just if you flick your TV on, if you're scrolling on the phone on the way home, it doesn't feel like it. But that's just one part. That's not the big part, but it's one part.
In a way, it's content because it's 24/7 news all the time.
There's
so
no
you can
news
be
anymore.
consumed, or you can be open to everything that's going on. Like
Exactly. And also there's an ownership there. We can actually choose a bit. We can't, I sit here and say, oh, it's being shoved down our throats. But we do have control over what we direct our attention to. And maybe that's a bit of a, we're all grown. I like to say, as we say back on the island, we're all grown. So we can take a bit of ownership around that.
No, I agree with you. So thinking back through the conversation, thinking back through the journey from Trinidad to Tobago to London to Edinburgh, and then with Chirag the last couple of years. So for people listening, thinking about leadership and whether they think about how can you be successful, how can you be successful and create a bit of a legacy or something that's long lasting. What would you say to listeners? How do you feel about things now? What would you feel your legacy is? Or is that something you don't really consider because, like us, you're always just thinking about the next thing?
Yeah, I'm always think Chirag and I always think of the next thing. But I think legacy bit feels like such a weighty word, you know. So I think our legacy, as it stands right now, is in the things behind the scenes, the things that we have helped our clients accomplish and put in place that have a ripple effect. Um, and so you don't see fireworks going off somewhere in a big marching band, but it's something that we've helped co-created with a client, and it's having effect, and it's affecting all across the ranks of the organization and those that interact with it. I think that's something that lives on. Um, and I think in terms of legacy, it's such a weighty thing. I suppose to be able to look back and see some of these connections that we've made and see ourselves and things that are happening. And I think when you have my thing, I don't know if I'm getting to that age. I suspect I am. I kind of always look towards young people. So I think whether you have children of your own or nieces or nephews, or any young people in your life where you just watch them as they go past their day with their friends with not a care in the world, it feels a bit like, what can you do that makes it a little bit easier for them as they they go to do their thing. And that isn't always, like I said, fireworks and a marching band, but what is Hastings doing so the employer that that we want, that young person goes into, that makes that experience better for them as their life develops, as they progress and achieve whatever it is they want to achieve. How are we helping society, and what are we doing to make that more positive for them?
Yeah. I think that's a good thought and a good legacy.
Yeah, a good point to end on there. Well, that's the end of the main body of questions, but we have a little fun section at the end. It's called Off the Cuff.
Okay.
We've just got some quick fire questions we've asked our other guests, so you've not to think about it too much. They can be one word or two or three words, whatever you want, but just don't think about it too much. It's a bit of fun.
Have to be honest.
Yeah. So, you go, Gregor.
Is it me first?
Yeah, you go first.
Late or fashionably early?
I'm from the Caribbean.
Good answer.
That's a good
What do you think? Come on, behave.
Well, I'm going to, what's your best habit and what's your worst habit?
Gosh, that's hard. My best habit. I don't know. What's yours?
Oh, putting it back at me. I'm just so kind, and accommodating. I don't know, Gregor.
I did say, to be honest.
All right, so. I've got,
Well, that's the
phone,
bad one. Sorry.
I phone our partners for now, and I phone my wife, and I'm sure they'd come up with several worst habits,
My best habit, maybe I always like to crack a joke. That could be my worst habit sometimes too.
Are they good jokes?
I think so. That's where the thin line when it becomes a bad habit. I think so.
We can share that one,
So if you could take a day out of the week and replace it with a second Saturday, what day goes?
Huh. I don't know. Midweek. Make a long weekend. Pick a day. I'll pick a Wednesday.
That's one of your favorite days to pick. I like this question. If Hastin were a band, what genre of music would you be?
That's easy. I think maybe calypso, soca music.
Very good.
That's an easy one.
Yeah.
What about, do you have a secret superpower in the workplace or when you're out and about with your clients?
I think I'm simple. I know that sounds strange, but I think I'm simple. I keep things simple, and it makes things easy and light. And I used to not like that about myself when I was younger, but I do very much now.
Yeah.
What you see is what you get, and that seems to carry me fine.
Yeah, so it's flipped round to a strength now.
Yeah.
Very good. If you could outsource one daily task forever, what would it be?
Cleaning.
I'll join you in that one as well. Yeah. Yeah, very good.
What's one word your co-founder would use to describe you?
I think he sounds funny. He seems to, well, I hope that's why he's laughing when we have all these team chats, but if I'm in trouble, but I think he thinks I'm funny.
This is an interesting question, which we've had varied results for, but perfection or just good enough?
Neither one. I think neither one. Something in between. something that runs in between. Just good enough doesn't ever sound good enough, but sometimes that's what someone needs at the moment. And perfection, that's in everyone's eyes. What I think I've done the thing here, and I walk away, and you guys will spend 2 days, 3 days trying to edit this into, I don't know. I think it's something in between. I don't think, don't know what that
We'll
word
go
would
with
be.
that. We'll go with in between. How about, is there any mistake at work where you've learned from?
Mm, when I first came from Trinidad, and 2 weeks later, I'm working in this big bank, and it was just a different work culture in terms of, it's just way back when. So I'm not saying Trinidad's like that now, but way back when, if you make a mistake, you're trying to quickly hide it and correct it yourself before someone sees. And I was thinking, what's going on here? I did this wrong, but it's not the end of the world. It was like people working to correct it quickly. And so a mistake I made was falling back on the way I was used to doing things. I was very young then, so trying to hide it makes it worse. You make a mistake, just fling the hands up. I mean, within reason. Sometimes you can kind of change the course of things quietly yourself, if you can, by all means. But not to the detriment of the team or what's going on. Makes it worse. Throw your hands up. Made a mistake. Own your own and change it.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Zoom call or meeting in person?
I like meeting in person. I sometimes wonder if, like a Zoom call, if people feel a relief when they, when you end the call and then it's the real you. I don't know. So I think in person, I don't know how much of the real you sometimes we are on the Zoom call. I don't know.
It's very hard body language as well sometimes in calls, but it's great to have the choice. And the last one, what do you love most about your business?
Different people I meet. Yeah, 100%. Different people, different backgrounds, different industries. It's very varied. It's always something to learn. Always something to learn. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, every day is different.
Yeah.
Well, Natasha, that's us. I just want to sort of thank you for your time. It wasn't that difficult. It was just a nice chat between us, wasn't it? But so thanks for sharing your insights and for telling us more about Hastin. And yeah, we appreciate you joining the From Me Too podcast.
Pleasure.
Thanks so much,
Thank you both
Natasha.
for
Thanks
having
for your
me.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.